Hello and welcome to you all, and thank you very much for joining us for our latest talk in our Wellbeing series, with today's focus all about planning for your financial future. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Austin and I'm the founder of the Really Helpful Club. I'm delighted to be joined today by Caroline Edwards, our events director. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Really Helpful Club, we thought it would be helpful to give you an idea as to our background, who we are, and what our community is all about before we introduce you to our speaker. And our team each come from professional corporate backgrounds. I was a fund manager in the city. Caroline, our events director, was a barrister, and Rowan and Francesca, who run Really Helpful Club in Surrey, Sussex, and Hampshire, both had careers in PR. And we've each taken career breaks, and we're now on our journey building this vibrant and fast-growing community together. So Really Helpful Club is an online network that brings together positive and open-minded people to help and connect one another in our personal and our business lives. And when I launched Really Helpful Club, I wanted to create a community of positive people, a place to share advice and to connect with others. And our vision is to be a supportive community that delivers trusted resources and valuable connections at every age and every stage in life. And now, 7 years on, we've grown into a unique network of like-minded people, a vibrant and collaborative community of well over 15,000 members. And our members share and listen, supporting and empowering each other through life, from entering the workplace, career progression, starting and growing a business, as well as positive parenting, managing the teenage years and the health challenges of midlife and caring for elderly parents. And it's our shared journeys that bind our community and is our greatest asset. And we would like to invite you to join our community if you haven't already done so. It's free to be a member, and it'll give you access to our events, resources, and a weekly newsletter with all the latest information and updates. We'll pop a registration link into the chat and in the follow-up information we send to you. And we look forward to welcoming you to our vibrant and our fast-growing community. Now, we have an exciting program of talks and workshops, so please make sure you visit the website regularly, look out for our newsletters, and contact Caroline about our events program. And all our webinars and online events are recorded, so please do contact Caroline if there's anything you've missed or you'd like to access the recording, or if there's anything coming up that's of interest to you and you'd like to find out more about and to book your place. Now, today we're focusing on planning for your financial future. And did you know that 29% of young adults between the ages of 18 and 29 are defined as financially illiterate by the World Bank? And throughout a young person's education years in the UK, financial literacy and learning financial independence is just not high on the curriculum. And in fact, 2/3 of young adults believe that it's a lack of financial learning when they were younger that led them into debt. So we thank you for taking part in this talk today, because better understanding of your finances can make a huge difference to your future. And learning financial management skills like budgeting and how to manage your outgoings, the importance of savings and pensions, and understanding investments, as well as the risks that are associated with debt, all of this empowers you to take control of your financial future for your long-term security. And we're delighted that we're joined today by a guest speaker, Eloise Corns. And Eloise joined the graduate scheme at St James's Place after university, where she's worked in a variety of departments, including investment management and partner finance. And this has given her the opportunity to gain a wealth of experience across a wide variety of financial aspects. And it's during this time that Eloise completed her master's degree in wealth and investment management. And she has a keen interest in financial education. And with this, she helped lead the START initiative, which is St James's Place's proposition for the under 30s, and it's delivered by the under 30s. And it's a desire to pursue a career as a financial advisor, and having completed her exams to qualify, but Eloise then joined a financial advisory practice in Canary Wharf as an associate advisor. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Eloise. The talk will last about 45-50 minutes. It's a very informative session. This is going to be for you and about you. And please feel that you can pop any questions into the chat box, and we'll host those at the end of the talk. But this will be a very full and informative talk. And you can send any of your questions directly to Caroline if you want to, or you can pop them into the chat box for other people to see. Do also pop any comments into the chat box. It's really interesting to see how people engage in this topic. It's such a wide topic that we want to get as much conversation going as possible. Now, we're delighted to send everyone a recording of the talk, so there's no need to take screenshots or to take notes unless you want to. And this is for you to just listen and to enjoy what Eloise has to say. And with that, Eloise, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to you if you're ready.
Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. I will get those. Here we go. Thumbs up if you can see that, Sarah Caroline. Lovely. Well, thank you for the intro, Sarah. That's fantastic. And yes, my name's Eloise Corns. I'm a financial advisor at One Wealth Limited, which is a partner practice of St James's Place, as Sarah mentioned. Now, I always start these talks with a bit of background in terms of, you know, the last couple of years have been interesting, to say the least. You know, we've gone through a pandemic. Then at the start of this year, you know, we've seen a war, which is still happening. The last couple of weeks have been pretty volatile when it comes to the markets, and I'm sure everyone on this call and watching at home has heard, you know, inflation, cost of living crisis, quite scary terms in the media. So now more than ever, I think preparing for your financial independence and having that sense of well-being and comfort when it comes to your finances is utmost and vital. So I'm really happy to be here to present about preparing for your financial independence. And I have to say, it's something I've seen a lot more demand for in the last couple of months. So I've been going into a lot of schools and companies talking to employees. It's not just young people and students that need help with their finances, it's everyone. So look, I like to start with this phrase, and you'll hear I do like a quote, but the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And do you know what? That goes without saying for a lot of things. This here is really just to try and highlight the importance of starting good habit forming now. And we'll go on to show why the value of time and putting good habits into place will be really valuable for everyone here. So look, I'm going to cover different things in this session, including basics of investing, risk, pensions, but as a lot of the people in the audience will be potentially starting university, thinking about that journey, what I really wanted to talk about was actually some of the basics. So understanding your pay slip. There'll be a lot of students who maybe have part-time jobs already or will be working throughout university. And actually, I asked the question, how many people actually understand their pay slip? Or who even looks at their pay slip? Do we just take the money home and go, thanks very much, let's spend it all straight away? I know I was very much of that mindset. So really, let's just get to grips with how a pay slip works. So what I've done here is put an example up for someone who's finished their university studies, they've come out and they've started on a basic salary of £30,000. Great salary. What else has happened here? They're auto-enrolled into a pension scheme. And what that means is they've automatically been put into their employer's pension scheme, which is a great thing. And I'll talk about pensions. But let's just go through here. So basic salary of £30,000, you can see gross income on the left annually, and you can see the monthly amount there. So a lot of people would just automatically go 30,000 divided by 12. Great, I've got £2,500 a month to spend. Unfortunately, we know in life we will have to pay tax. So actually there's automatically things that come off your pay slip. And when you're auto-enrolled here, you'll see your pension deductions come off first. They come off your gross income. So in this example here, I've done quite a basic calculation here. The employee, so the person paying this pay slip, is paying 5% into their auto-enrolment pension scheme. An employer will also pay 3% because the minimum contribution to a pension in an auto-enrolment scheme is 8%. So 5% by the employee, 3% by the employer. Now, auto-enrolment is fantastic because it means that people are saving into a pension. And actually, for young people, it means their pension pot's going to be great by the time they're older and in that retirement phase. And look, I appreciate that's £100 coming off your payslip each month. But the great thing about it is actually, if you were to take that money out rather than putting it into your pension, you'd have less coming out because you'd pay tax on it. So there's automatic tax relief. Also, your employer's adding 3% or potentially more in some companies. So you're getting a bit of free extra savings there. So when you speak to your children or any students listening, if anyone comes and says, I don't want to go auto-enrolled, I don't want to put money into my pension, sit down and talk them through actually, what would you get out of that if you turned it off? And what do you lose out in the future? And there's some following slides that will show you the power of time and those pension contributions that I think will make you interested and make you want to stay opted in. So once the pension contributions, deductions have come off, you're then left with your taxable income. And actually, the great news is you don't pay tax on the whole of your income. Everyone has a personal allowance of £12,570. So that first 12,500-ish £1,000, you get tax-free. You don't have to pay tax on that. Great. So what's left in this example is around about 16,000 that you pay your tax on. And that falls into the basic rate tax bracket, which is 20% at the moment. For most people here who will have heard of the mini budget or the growth plan announced a couple of weeks ago, that's actually reducing to 19% as it stands. So that tax of £3,248 would actually be slightly less in the next tax year. What's also important to highlight is the national insurance deductions that come off as well. One of those that a lot of people forget, you just think you're going to be paying your basic rate tax, but no, national insurance, essentially another tax, comes off as well, and important to calculate that. And finally, that student loan portion that comes off, potentially not as much as some people thought would come off. And I'll show you on the next slide the breakdown of student loans. So ultimately, all in all, £30,000 basic salary a year, you're taking home less than £2,000 a month, rather than that £2,500 gross. So really important to understand that. And look, I've screenshotted that pay slip. I shouldn't say this. I have from an online calculator. You whack in your details, you put in your pension contributions and whether you've been to university, what payment plan you're on, and all of this comes out. So I recommend anyone, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, to go online and just make sure you know what's coming out and check that what you're getting paid as well is correct as well. Now, student loans, hot topic for probably a lot of people on the call listening in. I think it's just really important to break this down because a lot of people get a bit nervous about student loans and think they're going to be paying an awful lot back. But you only start repaying your loan once you reach the income threshold, which is £27,288 per annum. So let's put that into an example. You've reached that threshold. So bear in mind the one before was £30,000 and you ended up paying £20 a month. This one here goes through an annual income of £28,800. You get your monthly wage. Now, it's over the Plan 2 being that type of student loan that you're repaying. And that's over the monthly threshold of that £28,800 divided by 12. So your income is £126 over the threshold each month. And what you pay back is 9% of that, which is £11 each month. So you can see actually, while student loans you do have to pay back, we have to understand that. Actually, it's not a really strict rule. It's not horrible when it comes off each month. 9% of that £11 a month won't feel too horrible for anyone. And obviously, the more you earn, the more you pay back. I think it's important to highlight actually for people scared about potentially taking on a student loan because they're worried about what they will have to pay back. These numbers make it quite nice. And again, loads of calculators online to have a look at actually what you'll be earning, what you need to pay back. Now, again, I'd just like to highlight a couple of the key things about student loans. First one being you only start repaying your loan once you reach that income threshold. Apologies, I've just noticed this has got 295. I think my previous slide was 288. It's now 295. Checked this morning. Interest starts accruing on that loan as soon as you start studying. So it's not, the interest doesn't start when you start repaying 3 years post you've started. It starts the minute you take that loan out. So again, not trying to put anyone off, it's not a negative, but it's just to be aware that actually it's real life, that interest rate is starting to accrue on your loan. And when I did this session back with Caroline in July, the interest rate was 4.5%. I'm afraid it is now 6.3%. However, it is capped at that at the moment and will be until March, I believe. So again, the government, you know, we don't want to burden students too much. So there will be hopefully a cap so it doesn't go too high. Really importantly as well, your student loan has no impact on your credit score. So yes, it's a loan, yes, it's a debt, but it won't impact you going forward, getting a mortgage or taking borrowing out. So it's really important that people understand how the loan works. And yes, you do need to repay it, and it's going to have an impact on actually your income and what you take home, but it won't impact your credit score negatively. And great news, after 30 years, the loan gets written off, even if you haven't repaid it in full. Now that 30-year clock starts on the April after you graduate, not the April you start, unfortunately, but the interest starts accruing. But so after 30 years, if you haven't paid that off, it will get written off in full. I know there was some discussion earlier this year about that potentially being boosted up to 40 years. That's not been put into effect yet. There is always the chance that that could happen, but as it stands, that's the kind of high level info about student loans for you. Now, talked about the pay slip in terms of actually what you're earning as a gross salary and what you're taking home net per month. Really, really important that people understand exactly what they're taking home so they can get to grips with their budget. Now, I say to a lot of people, I'm a financial advisor, so I am a bit square when it comes to my budgeting. I've got a big spreadsheet and I do look every single month at what's come in and what's gone out, because actually every month it's changing. Actually, what's going out seems to be increasing month on month for me, and probably is for a lot of people. So it's really important that this isn't just I'm going to do my budget and then I'm going to leave it for a year. No, your budget is ever changing and really important to keep looking at. So once we've identified what's coming in, and most of the time, unfortunately, that stays quite static. Hopefully you get pay increases, you get the promotions, but normally that income stays pretty consistent. Then you need to see, okay, what's going out? So I split this into your needs and your wants, your essential and your discretionary. So fairly basic, but your needs cover your things, your rent or your mortgage, your bills, council tax, food, transport, loan repayments. You kind of know that they're going to come out each month and you do need those. Now, other things that might fall into that some people could argue are discretionary, things like your phone bill or, you know, some leisure time, your gym membership. And I think it's really important when you're having discussions with, you know, family members, friends, everyone's going to be slightly different here. You know, transport costs will be different to someone living in London using public transport versus someone who's got a car, payment, fuel, all of those different things. So this isn't a one size fits all at all. It's also important to look at actually what is essential for you and not to kill off the things that make you happy and give you peace and mental health. You know, a gym membership for a lot of people is a necessity, and actually doing their regular exercise or having a bit of pot of money to go out and see their friends and socialize. You know, those things are really important too, and don't undervalue those. But then there are definitely your wants and your discretionaries, you know, your luxury goods, your eating out, your takeaways. Have a look at those. What do you want to allot yourself each month for those? It might be that you say, actually, I only want to do £20 a month on takeaways. I certainly try and do less than that. It's a try anyway. But holidays and luxury goods, find out what you've got left for that. Because at the end of the day, if you can work out exactly what your needs are, then you can see what leftover is in that pot for the rest of your fun things, your discretionary. Because what we tend to find is if you don't budget, what happens is everything comes in and everything goes straight back out, and you don't really have a handle on what you're spending, why you're spending it, and those expenses can go up and that income's not going up with it. So really important to get to grips with that. There's some great tools online, great apps as well, and different debit cards that offer, you know, pot tools that you can move money into each pots for here. So your bills pot, your food, transport, so many good things. And I think that's one of the benefits of technology, that we're able to access these things so easily. And, you know, young people today are really, you know, loving those things, and it's really helping them with these essential skills. Okay, so I've mentioned pensions, I've talked about auto enrolment. It's a subject that turns a lot of kids off and younger people, because they go, I don't want to think about retirement. I'm, you know, in my teenage years or early 20s, this is years away. And look, I think retirement and pensions can sound boring, dull at the best of times. They can also sound quite complex. You know, I've put all of these words up here: drawdown, annuity, final salary scheme, lifetime allowance. What does all of this mean? Now, I think it's really important that people start thinking about this and realise what the benefit is of retirement and having a pension pot. So I always say, think about your grandparents, your parents. Have they retired? Do they wish they retired earlier? Are they enjoying their retirement? Try and picture yourself when you're that age and go, oh, I would like to be retired then. I'd like to be enjoying my life. I'd like to be going on holiday, and try and attach an image to it so it can get a little bit more exciting for you when you're putting that contribution away each month that you're not going to see for another 40 years. But try and picture that. Now, I like to put some numbers to it as well, just to really emphasize the importance of starting early and the benefit of compound growth. So I'm going to call her Claire on our screen, and Claire's putting away £275 a month. Now, this could be into a pension pot. This also could be into anything else, any other wrapped investment, so an ISA, for example. But let's use the pension example, because I think it puts the years into a good context. So £275 a month, which does sound like a fair amount. But if you think about auto enrolment, and perhaps you're putting in a certain percentage, your employer's also putting into a certain percentage, once you reach a good wage and salary, actually that can become quite achievable. But over 5 years, with some growth on that, some investment growth, that pot's now worth just shy of 20,000 for Claire. Fantastic. Over 10 years, based on that same principle, you probably assume, okay, well, you've got double the time, I'll have double the pot, 40,000. But no, because of the power of compound growth and the growth on growth, Claire's got slightly more than that. She's got over £46,000 in her pot. Great, so time's really helped Claire out there. When you double that again, this is where the magic really happens, and the power of time. If Claire held her nerve for 20 years, kept doing those consistent habits, putting the £275 a month away, benefited from that compound growth, she now has a pot of over £280,000. And these numbers sound wild, but they are actually accurate. And you can do this in any calculator. That's just the magic of compound growth. And by adding each bit of growth each month, that adds up and multiplies, and really is, you know, fantastic. As Einstein said, the 8th wonder of the world, compound interest. And it works backwards as well, because some people like to look at it backwards. So some people say to me, well, I want a pension pot of £600,000. How do I do that? And okay, here I'm looking at an investment growth return of 6%. And if you start at 25, actually you'd need to be putting £323 a month away to do that. Fine. 30, 423. And if you delay it 10 years, you're nearly having to put double in a month to get to that goal. So it just really shows, again, if you leave it too long, actually, you're just going to have to do a lot more work. It's a lot easier and can be a lot cheaper for you if you start younger. And there's the difference, nearly £70,000 worth of difference in terms of what you've actually contributed to get that growth over that period of time. So I always find those numbers exciting. Hopefully everyone else has as well. But really, it sums this phrase up for me. It's about time in the market, not timing the market. And everyone here probably looks at the markets and goes, oh, very volatile. But this is the key principle, really. Time in, not timing. If we could time the market, we'd all be very happy. We could be billionaires. But no, your best friend is time when it comes to investing. And here I'm going to ask the point, I'm going to labour the point again. Would you rather have £1 million today or a penny that doubles every day for 30 days? I'm going to let you think about that. And hopefully this will show why you should have taken a penny that doubles every day. Now, I love this quote and this image, because it shows, do you know what, by day 14, you're thinking, Eloise, I should have taken the £1 million, not this stupid penny you've offered me. You know, 2 weeks in and I've only got £81 to my name. I could have had £1 million, be off to the Bahamas. Well, if you were patient, you kept consistent, and then you could see that by day 28, you've made the right decision. Now, I can't offer these growth rates. No one can, unfortunately. But again, this is hopefully articulating and showing you the power of compound. And here it is in basic terms. So this yellow line shows savings. So I'm putting £250 away a month, and equally that's just going to keep going up. As time goes on, your value is going to go off in a straight line. But if I keep putting that money in and then I get a little bit of growth on top, that's how compounding works. And that's where that blue line just ekes up. It stays about the same for the first few years, and then suddenly it starts going further and further away from that yellow line, just the basic saving, which is why investing is so powerful and so important, especially when we're tackling inflation. Now, another quote from me: it's not your salary that makes you wealthy, it's your habits. And again, I like to use an example here. You know, if you earn £200,000 a year, but you spend £200,000 a year, you're not wealthy. You've not got anything left over. Yes, you've got a fantastic salary, you're probably living a nice lifestyle, but actually you're not building wealth for yourself. So actually starting these habits early, and again, hopefully I'm probably labouring the points, but starting them early and getting those good habits in place will really stand you in good stead for the future. Now, credit cards, debt. I like to mention debt a little bit here and just talk about that, because debt can sound, and often is sounded as a very negative word, a dirty word. People don't like to talk about debt. They think debt's bad. But actually, probably everyone on this call will have at some point some form of debt, whether it's a student loan, a credit card, a mortgage, or even an overdraft. Actually, most of us will face debt at some point in our life. And it's not a bad thing. In some cases, it can be really positive. It can help build up our credit scores. You can get great benefits, cashback and rewards from things like credit cards. And you can get protection as well from credit cards when you buy things online versus using a debit card. What's really important, though, is that we don't get into bad habits with debt and things like credit cards, because just as compound interest can help you grow your money, it can have the inverse effect and snowball you into debt as well. So really understanding the debt that you're taking out, whether it's a credit card, an overdraft, what are those terms there? You know, really understand, what do I have to pay back? Are there minimum repayments? What's the interest rate on this? Because actually, if you're paying a super high interest rate on some debt, that could have a really negative effect and just grow that debt higher and higher. So really understand what that looks like. What are the costs and charges of this super nice credit card that everyone else has got, and it's a nice bright color? You know, really understand the terms. And if in doubt, speak to someone, because it really is important that you don't put yourself into that position and snowball yourself. And again, a great phrase here: save first and spend what's left. When you get your monthly net income, take that. You've done your budget, you're saying, right, I need this as my needs, I need to spend this. Then I've got some discretionary. Actually, I might have a little pot of money there that I want to save. Well, rather than wait until the end of the month and seeing if it's left to put away into your savings pot, put it away first at the start of the month and then spend what you've got left. So I can guarantee you 99% of the time, if you leave it there to move on at the end of the month, it won't be there. You'll have spent it. We tend to live to our means. It's just human nature. So this, again, is a really good habit to get into. Right, inflation, one of my favorite things to talk about. And again, look, we've heard a lot about inflation in the last few months, and we've hit almost a peak at over 10% this year. It seems extremely high, and people also talk about it very negatively. It is slightly alarming to be that high. However, we don't expect it to be that high for too long. Hopefully it will get under control, and the Bank of England, the base rate, they're trying to do their best to bring that down. But what does it really mean? What's it really doing for us? I'm sure actually a lot of people are feeling the effect of inflation, but let me just explain what it means for you. So I've put together a little basket of goods here: a phone, a coat, bag and shoes. And I'm being optimistic. I'm saying that's going to cost me £1,000 today. Great, fine. However, in 10 years' time, that basket of goods, if I've got 2.8% inflation each year, same basket of goods is going to cost me over £1,300. Cool. So if I put that £1,000 under the mattress, I certainly wouldn't be able to buy that same basket of goods. I'd probably have to knock off the bag, maybe the shoes as well. So not ideal. Equally, if I put that money in the bank and got 0.75% interest, I'd only have just over £1,075 back. So I still wouldn't be able to buy that same basket of goods. And that's why people look to invest, to try and beat inflation, to try and manage the effects of it, because actually inflation is eroding the real spending power of our money. And here's the example. If I'd put that money away and achieved 6% growth on an investment, I'd have nearly £1,800. So I could buy that same basket of goods and have some money extra. Now, it's really important to kind of state here, no one's guaranteed a certain growth rate. You're not. 6%, seems like a good annual growth rate. I have to say, after the last couple of years, the average might be slightly lower than that now. But what's important is the principle of investing and actually what we're trying to achieve. And over time, we have seen that investing into different asset classes, example, equities, does have a positive effect over the long term and can outpace inflation. So what really is investing? I've talked about inflation. I've talked about why we might want to invest to outpace inflation and to help us have some spending power of our money. In simple terms, it's the purchase of goods not to be consumed today, but used in the future to create wealth. Bit of a mouthful, but when you're talking about it, talking to someone about investing, it sounds exciting, it sounds sexy. But actually, you're putting your money away into something, you're not receiving anything immediately, and you're hoping that you're going to get something good out of it in the future. And that is really what it is. So focusing on that long-term goal and trying to put a picture to what you want in the future really helps you navigate that and keep yourself consistent. So I'm use some examples here. When it comes to investing, you might invest in an equity, or stocks and shares is a common term used. And what you might do is purchase a share in Apple, for example, or a share in a company, and you don't receive anything straight away. But this is the principle. You're using your cash today to buy an asset. And that asset can be anything really, in terms of, it could be a stocks and shares, it could be a commodity like orange juice or gold, a portion of, it could be a bond or a gilt, which you'll have heard of, government bonds. And what we're hoping is that asset is going to grow, and that we can have a bigger pot of cash to release from that asset in the future. Fairly basic, but that is a real stripped down version of what investing is. Now, people always ask me, okay, well, how do I get to investing? What should I think about? And I say, right, let's take it down to the basics. What do you really need to understand and think about when you're building an investment portfolio? Goals, I've used it a lot already. Goals is really important. What are your investment goals? Are you simply wanting to outpace inflation? Are you simply wanting to beat the interest rate that your bank's offering? Or are you wanting to save X amount for a house deposit in the future, or £600,000 into my retirement pot? So really understand what those goals are, because frankly, if you're going into it and saying, well, I just want to grow my money, actually there's so many other things you could be doing, and actually you need to understand what those goals are to really stay committed and stay focused. Once you define those goals, that will really help you then define the time horizon you have. So for example, well, I want some money for a house deposit, and I know I want to buy a house in 5 years' time. You've got 5 years for that pot of money. And time horizon is really important, because the longer you have, typically the more risk you can take, because what we see in markets is they're volatile. They go like this with investing, but over time, historically, we've seen that line always go up. So actually, the longer time you have, the longer you've got to ride those waves, the storms. So actually, you can take slightly more risk. If you've only got, a time horizon of a year, perhaps you might want to be more cautious with that pot of money, because what you don't want to have to do is take a loss from investing, because your money can go up and it can go down. So understanding the risks is really important as well. Different investments have different risk profiles. And here's an example of that. I like to use this diagram to talk about risk and your kind of capacity for loss. Because actually we take risks in everyday life all the time, and it's not just investing, but really what we want to see is everyone here within their risk appetite. We don't really want to go into that red section where you're exceeding your risk appetite. So consequence of loss is on the y-axis, risk of loss on the x, and risk of loss going up to the right, very likely, consequence of loss severe. So this little yellow one, the second one in the red, this little one here, sorry, very likely risk of loss, but the consequence is unnoticeable. And I like to say, a lottery ticket here or a scratch card. Going to pay £2 for it. I know I'm not going to win any money back. I still do them. But the consequence of loss for me is unnoticeable, because actually I can manage to lose £2. I've got the capacity for that loss. Whereas if I said put £10,000 on lottery tickets, or went to the races and put £10,000 on a horse, that would be noticeable loss for me. I'm probably going to lose it. I know the risk of loss is likely, and that would have a big impact on me. So capacity of loss is really important. And actually, again, if you're going to put a lot of money into something that's very unlikely to lose, that would fall within your risk appetite. So really important to think about those things here. And I think this is where a lot of people tend to ask me about cryptocurrency or new investments. And everything depends really on your capacity for loss. If you've got the money to lose, then that's up to you. And if it's a high risk, I would just say, be aware of the risks and understand it, and be aware what your capacity for loss is, because everyone will have a different capacity for loss. If you've got £50 million, you can probably afford to put £1 million into something risky, because you could live on 49 if you lost that 1 million. But equally, I wouldn't be putting your house in cryptocurrency because you think it's the next best thing, because actually it's extremely high risk and probably would have a severe consequence for you if you lost all of that. Okay, so we've defined your investment goals, the time horizons, and we've understood risks. Then you can research products. And again, you might want to speak to someone about that, because you go online, there's a lot of jargon out there. There are a lot of different things you can look at, and different consequences, tax implications of each product. Then I always say, commit to a strategy. You need to commit and not chop and change. So really focus, form those good habits and stay consistent. Then crack on and invest. And then probably the most important one here is to regularly review. Make sure you look back. People's circumstances change. Have those time horizons changed? Has your risk profile changed? Check that what you've committed to and what your goals are still in line, and how that's all performing. It's a really important part of investing. Okay, and this section, don't let scams ruin your plans. I did do the rhyme on purpose. I think this is really important for everyone. A lot of people think scams just target older people, and actually it's really not true. My colleague, who's my age, got that text message a few weeks ago. He didn't fall for it, thankfully, but it was a really good scam. We've identified you as eligible for a discounted energy bill. How tempting would that be for anyone to click that link right now? We've heard of all of the things that the government are doing in terms of energy bills, and these fraudsters target and are very clever. So I always say this is a really important part. Whilst we're thinking about building that future, make sure you protect the now and don't let a scam push you back 10 steps. So anytime you see this, and talk to your kids about this, because there are scams that are, hitting students as well. As well as that, one that actually maybe the younger generation might fall foul of slightly more are these trends. So you'll follow maybe, you know, influencers or, you know, people on Twitter, Reddit, who are talking about the next best thing, the next best currency, the next best investment. And often you only hear the good side of things. And actually, sometimes they might be paid to promote it, or they could just be showing off or totally fake or a fraud. Stop. If it sounds too good to be true, as the saying goes, it probably is. So again, encourage people to open up and talk. Stop, take a step back and talk to your friends, talk to your family about something that you're looking at doing. And again, think back to that risk capacity in terms of, okay, well, if I'm going to try something, do I have the capacity for loss here? But again, just be really vigilant on scams, because it's the perfect market for fraudsters to be doing them. And why is it important to talk about money? Well, it's often seen as quite a taboo subject. And I think, you know, in the previous years, a lot of people never talked to their parents about it, grandparents. It was always hush hush. But actually, we know money is a leading contributor to stress and mental health problems. So it's really important that we, you know, encourage our friends and families to talk about money. It's not a shameful subject. If something's gone wrong, if you've spiraled yourself into debt, there's always a way out, people who can and will help. So please don't ever bury your head in the sand. If you need help, just talk about it. And again, this is for everyone. It's not given that your parents know more than you about money. You might have been taught some things. You might be sharing things with, you know, other friends, family. It's not necessary that everyone does know more than you about money. So talk about it with other people, get other opinions. And learn from others and share your knowledge. You know, I hope after this, everyone's going to go away and do a little bit of research, go and do their budget and go, oh, I didn't know about this. Did you hear about this? Talk about it with your friends and families and your colleagues and everyone, because it's really important that we share and learn from each other. Okay, so I will send out a top tips for financial independence, and I've covered them all today, but just as a kind of refresher. Number one, budget. Understand your income, determine those needs and wants, and then regularly monitor and update your budget. I can't stress how important this is. As I said, I'm doing it monthly at the moment, and I really just would encourage everyone to have a look at that and make sure they're comfortable with that, because you'll get so much peace of mind just sitting down and working it out and knowing how much you spend. Even if your income and your expenditure match, that's fine. As long as your expenditure is not above your income, you're good. Set goals. Visualize yourself in the future. You know, really important. Even though it's a long way away, think about where you want to be, and then it will help motivate you to do your goals and put the money away and start your investing. And set timeframes to help make these goals reality. You know, there's the age-old saying, a plan without a goal without a plan is just a dream. And I really believe in that. Put those goals down, set yourself targets, and you will get there. Be consistent. Stick to your plans to achieve your goals. And this is much easier to do when you've got that visualized self in the future, because if you don't, you kind of lose momentum, you kind of lose the habits, and you go, why am I doing this? And stop. So really try and do that, be consistent, and don't be misled by hypes or scams, please. Again, if the one thing you take away from this is to just stop and ask the question before you click on something, really be vigilant. Start now. Hopefully I've given you some great stats in terms of actually the power of compounding, and it really is never too early to start planning and saving. So if someone says, why are you saving for your retirement? You're 20, you know, show them these stats and these numbers and say, you won't be laughing when you're in retirement and I've got, you know, £2 million pension pot. And finally, talk about it. You know, speak to friends and family, keep learning and sharing that knowledge. And equally seek advice from experts if you feel you need to. You know, there are people out there like myself who have done the exams. I do this day in and day out. And actually, I'd like to see myself as an expert, and are there to give peace of mind to people, whether it's students, families, professionals, anyone. You know, finances can be really stressful, and actually just having someone else's opinion and someone else's support there on your side can really help. So there's a little slip that I'll send out with the recording here as well, that has those 5 top tips. So, you know, hopefully everyone's going to watch this back on record, but if you can't be bothered to rewatch me all the way through, the 5 top tips are there for you to, you know, keep with you at all times, and please go away and do them, it would be great. But that's my session. I can see we've had questions in the chat, so I don't know whether you want me to just answer them, Caroline, or whether you'll ask away the ones that look.
Yeah, no, they're quite interesting actually. So I mean, they dip around a bit. So let's go back to pensions. Julietta asks, she can't see how the pension deduction is 5%.
Oh,
something else taken off first. I don't know if you want to go back to that slide.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, sorry, I was right at the start, isn't it?
Yes.
Was it 5% of the gross income? 5% of, have I done my maths badly? I did it from a payslip calculator, so I'm just sorry. Here we go. Pension deductions 1,188. That'll be because that's how much you're contributing into it in terms of the tax relief that you get. So the government gross up your pension contributions from an employer perspective. So that was the 5% of an employer. I appreciate that's not 5% of the 30,000, but that's the way it works out on the calculator. So I'm sure those numbers are right. Essentially what that's saying is, so on the monthly amount, the employee puts £100 in, and then that gets grossed up with an extra £25 to make a 5% contributions based on tax relief of pensions. So they're quite a tax efficient investment, I guess you could call it, that wrapper.
They've taken the tax off first.
Yes.
I see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Talking about credit ratings, is it correct that getting a credit card helps towards a credit rating for getting a mortgage? For example, if you take out a Revolut or Monzo card. Okay,
so great question. I mean, in terms of Revolut and Monzo, I'm not sure whether they have a credit card version. They may do. I'm guessing, if the question's asked. Yes, they help your credit score. They help your credit rating, as long as you're making those minimum payments and you're following the terms and the conditions of the credit card. So yes, they can absolutely be a powerful tool to help you with that credit score in getting a mortgage. Yeah.
And then just the point that if you overdo the credit cards, there's a lot of 0% offers out there. Is that something that you would recommend? So shopping around, moving around?
100%. And actually, in one of the other slideshows I've done before, one of our tips is shopping around and actually spending some time. It can be a bit laborious, but looking at everything, whether it's your bills, your subscriptions, but also things like credit cards. Actually, what are the best offers? Changing banks. A lot of banks offer, £100, £200 just to switch. So actually, it can be really powerful just spending a bit of time shopping around. So absolutely.
Okay. Talking about spreading risk, do I assume tracker funds do that for you in any event? Do they do it generally?
Yeah, interesting question. So a tracker fund essentially tracks an index. So FTSE 100 being a common one, a popular one, you're essentially tracking that index. So does it spread risk? It spreads risk as much as the FTSE 100 is diversified. There's nothing stopping the FTSE 100 being full of tech firms. It's not. It does have a mix. But I guess if you're tracking the FTSE 100, you're solely in the UK there. So actually, you're not diversifying yourself across different areas. So yes, tracker funds can be really good. I do think they don't offer diversification as much as perhaps a blended portfolio would offer, where you've got some stuff from the US, you've got Asia, you might have a little bit of the UK in there, and it's a little bit more thought about rather than just tracking an index.
Great. If you feel overwhelmed by your mortgage, is it right that institutions prefer you to face up to it and call them and tell them about the problems, so that you can then get a mortgage holiday or term extension?
Yes, is the short answer. Definitely. Banks as well are really encouraging people to speak to them and actually say, if you're struggling, to come and speak to them first, because they are putting processes in place to support the vulnerable and the people that do need help. One thing I'd say on mortgages, and I work with a mortgage broker, and I spoke to them on Friday. I mean, mortgage rates are now around 6% on average. I think 2 months ago, they were nearer 3%. So just the rate of increase in the mortgage world is phenomenal. And the lenders are just pulling out left, right and centre. So mortgages are, massively increasing at the moment. And a quote that I saw from them was, if you've got a £300,000 mortgage, the difference that you'll be paying in a monthly payment from now to what you would have been doing on a half the amount of interest is about £600 a month. So that will really impact people, and again brings it back to doing that budget, sitting down and thinking about it. My only advice in terms of mortgages is, if you're due for a renewal soon, you can renew up to 6 months before that renewal's ready. So go and speak to a mortgage broker, because you can renew that quickly. And actually, if you sign something now and then the rates drop in 6 months, you can then redo a different version. So it's better to lock in now and potentially get a lower rate than you will in 6 months' time. So that would be my top tip for anyone who's about to renew on a mortgage.
Thank you. Is it correct that Revolut and Monzo help students split their outgoings, share bills, etc.?
Yes, I mean, I can speak on Monzo's behalf because I've got a Monzo account and I think it's fantastic. You can pay your bills directly, obviously, as normal, and then you can split bills. And if everyone else has got a Monzo account, it's really easy. There are other different apps you can get, Split Save I've heard of. Often if I've gone away with some girlfriends on a weekend away, you can put all of the bills in and calculate how much each person owes. So utilizing that technology and using those tools like Monzo and Revolut can be really helpful when it comes to especially moving in with people, or starting to go out with other people, and that awkward bit of, oh, you owe me £10 from last night. You can just send a request on Monzo, £10 for that drink last night, and they pay it straight back. It's great.
And PayPal's quite useful for that as well, isn't it, if you have a PayPal account?
Yeah.
Let's face it, none of us have cash.
No one carries cash anymore. No. And
No.
sometimes that's safer as well, isn't it, at the end of the day? But I guess it's just making sure you don't keep tapping away, don't get too tap heavy with the card.
Yeah, and also remember, you can split your Uber fares with your flatmates, housemates. It's very easy. There's just a little button on an Uber app that says split your fare. I did it with some friends the other night, and it was fantastic. It meant we didn't have to have that accounting exercise the next morning.
It's fab, and long gone are the days where someone goes, oh, I don't have the Uber app, I can't pay for it. And then now you can just go, no, right, we're splitting it, easy. So yeah, it's fab.
Yeah, it saves all that embarrassment as well, doesn't it? So, but don't be afraid to ask. I mean, all of you are in the same boat. If you're all students, none of you have got lots of money. So don't be afraid to ask to share. Right, I think that is it on the question front. Yeah, you've been really comprehensive. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to pass back to Sarah.
Eloise, thank you very much indeed. I mean, I think you've covered a lot of topics in a short amount of time, very thoroughly and in a very informative way. So I do hope that everyone that has watched this has found this informative and useful. And remember that you can always follow up by contacting Eloise if you want to, pursue a particular topic or find out more about what she does, or there's, a particular subject that really grabbed your interest. But I'm sure she'd love to hear from you, and we will share her contact details as well. And with that, I'd just like to reiterate that we will send a recording of the talk to everybody, so you'll be able to watch it with your family afterwards. And we do hope that you enjoy being part of our vibrant, our trusted and our fast growing community. And let me just leave you with this, and I think really to reinforce some of the messages that Eloise shared, that don't ever underestimate the importance of starting good habits early. We could all see the benefits of what that can bring, but also be sure to define your goals and don't be afraid to talk about it. At every point in someone's life, it's really important to be able to talk about money in some way. And I thought it was very important how Eloise made that connection between financial well-being and mental well-being as well. And always to learn and to share that knowledge. So remember, there's so much help and expert advice out there, and don't be afraid to ask for that help. and we are here to always help you to take your next step forward. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.